So the Brown Mountain Lights are a phenomenon that are indigenous to western North Carolina, named after Brown Mountain, of course, in the Black Mountain Range, and that's adjacent to the Linville Gorge. And really, the lights are sort of seen all throughout that area.
You would first see a glimmer of light on the ridgeline, and they basically slowly started to rise up out of the trees. We never really saw anything fast moving.
Luckily, we had the right equipment to really see these lights. We had that Aurora Sport Psionics, which is a full color night vision.
Join us for an exploration and experimentation into the phenomenon known as the Brown Mountain Lights. Before we get this video started, since it is about North Carolina, I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about the catastrophic effects of the recent hurricane that hit much of North Carolina. In late September, Hurricane Helene swept through much of the American South, leaving a path of destruction in its wake. Western North Carolina, and in particular many of the mountainous regions around Asheville and other areas, were hit very hard. Entire roads, towns, and communities were wiped out overnight, in some cases due to extreme flooding. At least 115 people were killed in North Carolina as a result of the hurricane, with an untold amount of property damage caused as a result. Even now, 1 month later, the destruction is still evident, and it will take a long time for these places to bounce back. They could certainly use a helping hand, so here are some ways that you can help North Carolina recover. One simple way is to visit parts of western North Carolina and spend some tourism dollars in the communities that need the money. Here's what visitnc.com says in a recent travel update for western North Carolina. Quote, "Recovery from Hurricane Helene is ongoing in the mountain and foothill regions of North Carolina. Most highways in western North Carolina are open, with many destinations ready and welcoming visitors for fall travel. However, some roads remain closed or have restrictions. Of particular note are closures on both I-40 and I-26 at the Tennessee state line, impacting travel between North Carolina and Tennessee. DriveNC.gov provides current road conditions throughout the region, including alternate route recommendations for traffic on I-40 and I-26." End quote. Be sure to check out their interactive map to see closed areas and roads. There are many humanitarian groups and efforts underway to help rebuild the affected communities. Samaritan's Purse is one group doing a lot of post-disaster rebuilding in western North Carolina, and if you'd like to contribute to their efforts, please check out their website. Haywood Christian Ministry is also doing plenty of work on the ground, and they have a donation page on their website if you'd like to contribute. These are just a few ways you can help the people of North Carolina. However, there are many other groups and organizations doing great work as well. In these tough and trying times, I'm sure the people of North Carolina could use all the help they can get. Now, on with the video. The mountains of North Carolina are filled with many mysteries and strange stories. Tales of unknown creatures lurking, old superstitions, and mysterious phenomena abound. One of these mysteries that has evaded explanation for decades and has intrigued many a curious person is that of the Brown Mountain Lights.
So the Brown Mountain Lights are a phenomenon that are indigenous to western North Carolina, named after Brown Mountain, of course, in the Black Mountain Range, and that's adjacent to the Linville Gorge. And really, the lights are sort of seen all throughout that area. Some locals I've spoken to would say you really only see these phenomena primarily at Brown Mountain. Then there are others over there close to Linville Falls who I've known over the years who would say, well, you know, we think you should call them the Linville lights because we see them over here too. Ideally, it's probably some kind of a natural phenomena, and something about the region, maybe geologically, is what's causing it. And so it makes sense that we would see these lights all throughout the area and not just at Brown Mountain. In my own research, I've certainly found a concentration of reports at Brown Mountain, but some of the best photos I've seen have also been taken from at Wiseman's View, looking over at Table Rock and Hawksbill Rock. And so indeed there are different kinds of phenomena that occur, and they do appear in different areas throughout the gorge and the adjacent Black Mountain Range, presumably of course Brown Mountain being kind of a central focus of that. So as far as what the lights look like and what people are used to seeing, I mean, there are kind of two varieties of the phenomena. One which is a ground-based phenomena. It almost looks kind of like lightning, but moving maybe along the ground or amidst the trees, and it can sometimes sweep right across the mountain. This is often seen at Brown Mountain. And some of the locals who have described the phenomena, who have lived there their whole lives, they'll say, well, that's really what the Brown Mountain lights are. But then there are also these instances where you'll see these globes of light, maybe somewhat kind of like a beach ball in size, usually yellow, orange, or white in coloration. And sometimes they'll be seen drifting along the mountain. Sometimes they lift up above the mountain, and they'll actually rise up into the air. One rather interesting account that was shared with me many years ago by a gentleman, he had been part of an atmospheric science class at Appalachian State University, and he said that they, during a heavy rainstorm back in the 1970s, observed several of these lights over the course of several hours rise off of the ridgeline of Brown Mountain. They'd get to a certain altitude, and then they would begin to drift off in a particular direction, almost like they were candle balloons or something along those lines. Now, some would say, well, maybe they were candle balloons, but under torrentious heavy rain like that, I would find it hard to believe that candle balloons could, remain lit and of course be carried aloft like these phenomena appeared to do when this gentleman observed this. So again, the way that he described them, these sounded almost more like ball lightning. And this is an interesting thing too. Many describe a ball lightning-like aspect to Brown Mountain. So again, there are the phenomena that occur kind of on the ridge itself, and then there are the self-contained luminous orbs that are ball lightning-like. And that's essentially kind of what the Brown Mountain lights are and how people describe them. Here we have the Sunday, July 29th, 1962 edition of the Asheville Citizen-Times. And this article by Jim Beatty, Brown Mountain Lights Remain a Mystery to Viewers. And this photograph, presumably attributed to a Times photographer, maybe Jim himself, this was in the feature editorial section. We have a photograph that actually shows little lights there at Brown Mountain. Now these are interestingly all seen below the ridge line. So I would say that it's possible that we're looking at something unique there, or those could be campers way back in the 1960s. But again, it shows the prevalence of the interest in this at that time. Now here we have a very interesting piece of information, I think, in the Brown Mountain narrative, and this is from a book by Nancy Roberts, where she had a chapter on the Brown Mountain lights, and her husband Bruce Roberts took photographs when they were there. This depicts, of course, the old U.S. Forest Service sign that used to be there at the 181 overlook, where you can observe the Brown Mountain lights. What I find really interesting is the photograph that Bruce obtained either that night or some other time when they had been down there, where you clearly see the distinctive ridgeline of Brown Mountain, but then also these lights that appear to be over the ridgeline. And I happen to know that from that vantage, you're not going to be seeing the city lights of towns and things in the distance from that vantage. You certainly could if you were up on Ginger Cake Mountain or on the road that takes you to Table Rock and you're looking down into the valley at Brown Mountain. You'd easily see more of the ground and the horizon, even off in the distance beyond Brown Mountain. But in this instance, we're seemingly looking at objects above the ridgeline from a vantage point where you're seeing sky off in the distance behind Brown Mountain. Who knows what these objects are, but again, I would look at this and say this is probably a good example of objects, lights that are rising above the ridgeline and from a vantage where they seem to depict aerial phenomena, lights. And that would be some of the criteria I describe as being probably good qualifiers for what the Brown Mountain Lights are. Again, what we see in that photograph is consistent with things that have been told by observers over the years when they say, yeah, we saw these lights rise off the ridgeline, go up into the air, sometimes hover. And then finally, there's also a certain degree of similarity between the light manifestations represented in that photograph and some of the recent footage like that captured by Joe and Jessi in February of 2023.
Can you see that? Can you guys see that? Do you see that ball of light just rising above the mountain?
Jessi, there's 3 of
Look at them!
they're just hovering.
Look at them rising above the mountain. Do you see the lights, guys? That is so freaking cool.
This is why. All right, now the top one's starting to get brighter again.
Now that one on the left, it moved over to the right, and then it jutted over to the left. Like they're just meandering through the sky.
It was February when we decided to come. It was extremely cold up through here. And the mountains, obviously, it gets cold in the wintertime, but it was going through a cold spell at the time. So we figured that would be good, even though it wasn't the ideal time of the year, because it would limit down on the amount of people that were in the mountains, and then limit the possibility that we were seeing mundane light sources and then misidentifying them. So we kind of just did it all a lark. We just kind of loaded some equipment in. We had a Psionic Sport night vision camera, and we just kind of came up with like no scouting, got up here late, didn't even check the surrounding area out during the daytime, and then just came up at night and came up on Wiseman's, and had only been there for a few minutes when we started to see those orbs form on the top of the mountain and then just lift up. And then we watched that for well over an hour at that point. So the footage we released was just a representation of what we were able to catch that night. I mean, we were up there literally until we ran out of memory for the camera.
We went out there, we went out on the overlook and emerged from the woods out to the overlook there. And we were there for a few minutes, and then all of a sudden you see just light and down, like on the mountain there. And it wasn't up in the sky yet or anything like that. It was down kind of where you expect the lights to be. And you know, with our channel, we were like, wait, we have a little bit of a signal. Let's live stream. We're here at the Brown Mountain Lights. Let's live stream it. So I set that up. We started live streaming. So we live streamed the entire event. So you can barely see them with the naked eye. And luckily we had the right equipment to really see these lights. We had that Aurora Sport Psionics, which is a full color night vision, and it just gathers in light like crazy. So you can really get the full picture of what these look like. And I think, you know, talking about the right equipment for it, a lot of people have come out to these areas and they don't see the lights. And I think that has to do with a lot of the light pollution. That there is a city in the distance, Lenore's in the distance, and I think that kind of drowns it out a little bit, but when you have the right equipment, you can really see it. I think that's why people saw the lights more consistently before electricity was widespread in the area, because you didn't have that vast amount of light pollution.
So you would first see a glimmer of light on the ridgeline, and we had probably the same discussion that everybody else has up here. Are we seeing campers? Are those campfires? Who would be foolish enough to camp on the top of a mountain on a ridge and the weather that we were experiencing that night? But then you watch them, and they basically slowly started to rise up out of the trees. We never really saw anything fast moving. They would just slowly kind of come up, and then we're going through the secondary kind of questions. You know, are we seeing drones? Is it some sort of like, you know, Chinese lantern flying up and everything? But they would just drift up and then stop, and then drift in one direction, stop, drift in another direction, and then another one would come up. And again, if it's Chinese lanterns, something like that, they're all gonna move according to the same wind speed and direction. You're gonna see them kind of like uniform in their movement. It's not what we saw. They would just drift in different directions at that point. And then they would just go up and then just slowly dissipate and go away.
When Jessi sent me that footage, again, first of all, I began to think, well, these are probably aircraft. we should be able to determine that pretty quickly, because those lights are going to remain stationary for a time, but then when the aircraft banks and heads off to the east or west, we're going to be able to see those beacons. And the lights never do that. I had an astrophysicist friend look at those and say, well, maybe these are candle balloons. But again, with the wind conditions and also the duration that the lights remain aloft and also in a single location, hovering seemingly for a fairly long period of time captured on film, I find it hard to believe that those are candle balloons. Not impossible, but again, I find it harder to use that as an explanation for what appears in that footage. Now, what appears in that footage is also consistent with photographs and video that other friends of mine, including former scientists at Bell Laboratories who I've worked with over the years, it's consistent with things that they've seen and filmed as well. And so over time, I think that you begin to assemble these sorts of criteria, very bright globe of light, white, yellow, or orange, often rises off the ridge line, remains stationary for a long enough period, or it moves in a way that is inconsistent with aircraft. These kinds of things that help to discern between prosaic sources of light, campers, aircraft, etc., and again, the so-called anomalous phenomena that occurs.
When I'm looking at it, I was just going, we came here thinking like traditional spook lights, the traditional, every area that has these weird lights always has kind of the same folklore behind it. Dead miners, you're seeing miner lanterns, things that are tied in with the Native American tribes in the area, the Cherokee, that the usual story you hear is that there was some sort of battle between warring Native American tribes, and what you're seeing are the lights of the torches of the squaws looking for the braves that were killed in battle. So we kind of came up with like a paranormal, supernatural kind of frame of mind looking for these. And then what I'm looking at is I'm going, this is like UFO activity, man. Maybe not mechanical craft, but I'm seeing an unidentified light flying in the air at that point. I didn't see anything supernatural about it.
So as far as some of the earliest sightings of the Brown Mountain Lights, according to some traditions, there are accounts that date back again to prehistoric times. I mean, this essentially being oral traditions shared by the indigenous Americans from this region, primarily this having been the Cherokee. And they describe sightings of lights that have been known, again, throughout this region for many centuries. The problem with the traditional perspective is that in terms of actual written history, we don't have any actual written legends that explicitly describe the Brown Mountain Lights seen in that locality and known in traditions that extend back to pre-Columbian times. The perspective on this being something that's been known for centuries and present in the regional folklore, the indigenous traditions, is an idea that began to emerge only after the first known historical sightings were recorded. So in terms of the first historical sightings that were recorded, really this takes us back to the 19-teens. That's when we have the first sightings that began to be documented in newspapers. The Charlotte Observer and others began talking about sightings by locals, a lot of them down there in Morganton. And in fact, I think one of the very earliest reports described a boating club down on Lake James, and they said that looking up in the direction of Linville Falls, they could see these lights sometimes from all the way down there at Lake James. There was an investigation back, I believe, in the 1920s by a man named George Mansfield with the USGS. And when Mansfield went up there and did his investigation, he had spoken to some of the residents who lived at Ginger Cake Mountain and some of the adjacent ridges. And some of the people who lived there in the areas where many would actually sit and watch the lights in the evening, and said that these were the good spots where you could watch the lights off down on Brown Mountain, they claimed to have actually known about these lights as far back as the Civil War. They had family members who had said that they recalled hearing about these things going all the way back, to maybe the 1850s, 60s, and 70s. So again, according to those stories that Mansfield collected, there were some in the region who said that they knew people who had known of the lights at least by the middle of the 19th century. But again, the only documented reports that we really have don't appear until the very early 20th century.
With my curiosity fully piqued about this unusual phenomenon, I wanted to spend a few days near Brown Mountain and in the Linville Gorge with Micah, Jessi, and Joe. All right, here we go. So Micah, where are you taking us right now?
So we're headed up Table Rock, one of my very favorite spots right here in the Linville Gorge. This was referred to, of course, as the mystic altar of the indigenous Cherokee, and it's still a place of allure and wonder.
Awesome. Let's go. This is where a lot of those lights supposedly are seen, so it'll be cool to kind of see it from this perspective up here. So were you looking at the chimneys over here? Yeah, you can actually see one of the chimneys off there in the distance. And if you take the other portion of this trail from the Table Rock parking lot, it takes you right up that ridge and along down where you get a very up close and personal view of those chimneys. So this rock we're standing under is actually well known to fans of literature because in his novel, Master of the World, Jules Verne actually incorporated this rock. He called it the Eagle's Nest. And the antagonist, Rober, lands his airship on top of this rock. Now he had never, Jules Verne, he'd never come to the Linville Gorge, but he read the travel logs and he incorporated this into his story and made this area right here the sort of lair of Rober where he landed his airship. So this is one of the prominent locations that's featured in that novel. Very interesting that it's a science fiction about craft.
Yeah.
Moving vehicles.
Well, what's also interesting is that in that novel, the locals in nearby Morganton described seeing weird activity up on the mountain, lights and things. So some look at that as possibly being a fictional reference to the kinds of things which around that same time started appearing in newspapers in the region, which describe what popularly today are known as the Brown Mountain Lights.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. This is cool.
This would have been an exceptional camp spot for any ancient hunters who would have come up here, been hunting or just seeking shelter up on this incredible majestic rock. And I have to imagine, I mean, if we're drawn to locations like this today, I mean, ancient minds would have been just as fascinated with these natural prominence. And so yeah, a spot like this yet again, we're probably standing where countless thousands of years of human presence camping has occurred, yeah. Now be careful, watch your step, but there's one of the best views in western North Carolina you're looking at right here.
Wow.
So there's the parking lot down there. And actually, there are, I gotta see where they are, but there are connectors in the stone here where rock climbers, maybe with the Outward Bound school down there, but they actually will rappel off of this rock. I don't see where they are.
Now this is basically where the objects in Joe and Jessi's video were floating or hovering.
Yeah, so Joe and Jessi, I believe it was in February of 2023, they, from Wiseman's View, filmed a series of lights that, again, I found this footage incredibly intriguing because you see the lights essentially directly out and above where we are here. Now, one thing you'll obviously notice is how much wind there is up here at this altitude. The wind's constantly whipping through. In February, it probably would be even more pronounced. And the fact that some of those lights would ascend to a point and hover and remain in position for so long. I mean, I looked at these and I first tried to rule out aircraft coming from a small private airport over in Lenoir. I can tell you that for the length of time that those lights appear in that footage and the movement patterns, they don't appear to be conventional aircraft. I actually had an astrophysicist friend of mine look at them and she said maybe candle balloons. But yet again, the idea of those candle balloons remaining aloft and stationary in February amidst all this wind, it defies logic. So I don't know what's in that footage. I just say that it's very unlikely to me that they're conventional candle balloons or aircraft. Now, again, if you add to what you see in that footage, the traditional lore about sightings of the lights, which do often, and there are photographs that I think that depict this phenomena, but again, these lights that rise off of the ridge lines and actually go up into the air, I mean, that's entirely consistent with what Jessi and Joe filmed. And so again, if you were sitting right here on this cliff where we are right now, and those lights appeared, I imagine you would have a front row seat. You couldn't have a better view of the lights than this.
Have there been reports from people here seeing the lights while here on Table Rock area?
You hear some reports of observations of the lights from here. Now the problem really is that the vast majority really come from over at Wiseman's. And that's one reason why, again, the skeptic in me is always on the lookout for misidentification of campers, lanterns, things along those lines. You can't rule out even fireworks. I've found spent Roman candles and fireworks down in the gorge, which is probably a really dangerous thing to do, but people have done that. Locals I've talked to talk about people who come up here and play Brown Mountain lights. They'll do things like that to try and trick the the onlookers over at Wiseman. So you can't rule all of that out, but to me, if there were more observations from over here at Table Rock, and there were more people who from this vantage point said, look, we saw a great big luminous beach ball sized orb of light hovering 25 yards away from us from the top of Table Rock, that would be a really good sighting, in my opinion.
Where are we descending into now?
So right now, we are down in this kind of a liminal space on the side of Table Rock. And until recently, I didn't know that the actual official name of this, and this was never marked on the trail previously, is apparently the Devil's Cellar. I have known this cave just kind of, as the cave at Table Rock for many years. Others have known it by other names. This is one of my favorite spots. And it's a very challenging place to get into because we've got to go down there. We've got to crawl down through all that and down into this canyon. Woo! Oh, man. I love this.
So this is the cave.
Go in. Have a look around, huh?
Anybody home? Definitely a cellar.
So, one reason this probably would have been used back in the day for camping is because, there's your chimney. And you could build your fire right here. And the smoke has an escape.
Yep.
It looks like there's been some erosion. Could you shine a light? Yeah. It looks maybe like some of these rocks have moved around a little.
I'm sure that'll come down eventually.
Yeah, so that's a little freaky.
I traveled out to Wiseman's View, which is just opposite of Table Rock, in order to meet up with Jessi and Joe, to the location of where they filmed that unusual video last year. While it was night when we arrived, to our surprise, we immediately began seeing lights on the opposite side of the gorge by Table Rock. The following is our documentation of what we witnessed that night.
Alright.
I see. Oh, wow, look at the flash. Wow.
The flashes we did not see last time.
Wait a minute, is that, let's make sure that's not lightning
Is that lightning in the distance? So what's going on, Jessi? We're already seeing them?
Yeah, we already seen. We walked up and they were already over the mountain. We've got a little lightning in the distance, but we can definitely see the difference between that. I'm running a Psionics Pro. When we filmed the lights about a year ago, we had the Psionics Aurora Sport, but we upgraded since then. So hopefully the new camera gives us some better footage on this go round.
That's so cool. Seeing it, Joe?
Yeah, I'm seeing 3.
One of the lower platforms.
I'm seeing 2 that are right above the tree line, and then I'm seeing a flashing one that's moving slowly to the right of them in the tree line.
You're on the Psionics too, right?
I'm on a Psionics Sport, yeah. It's
He's
like
on a Psionics Sport, and Luca, you're on the, which one's that one? The Psionics Aurora?
Hey, look at the one in the middle. It looks like it's slowly rising up.
Oh. Yep, I see that.
Whoa.
You can see the lightning with the naked eye, and you see the light flashing like behind them.
I didn't even look to the left. You got one in the air over here. Do you see it? Oh my God. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Those are what we saw last year. It's just like a ball of plasma.
Do you see it on the camera, Luca?
You wanna look? Go ahead.
Yeah, let me check it out.
It's above the tape.
Here's this.
Wait.
It's rising up.
I mean, I see the ones on the ridge, and it's incredible. Yeah, look
There's
at that.
3 on the ridge right now. And then, Alex, look to the left.
Above the...
Right above that promontory there.
Yeah.
You see that round ball?
Yeah, it's
been slowly
pulsating.
rising up, yeah.
It's like pulsating?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, oh my God, look at that. It's like... it's crazy seeing it with the naked eye. Wow, look at that. What is that, man? What is that? Let's move down there. Hey, Jessi.
I'm going, yeah.
There's 5 of them.
Where are you guys at?
Fourth platform.
Okay. We're rolling. We've been seeing them here. This is crazy. Didn't expect to see them right away. And now it's like dim. It's gone. Wait, let me see on this.
So I've
guy.
got them on the Pro right now. You've got a wide section of lights that are a little dull, and you've got a bright one on top.
Does that have like an IR thing on it?
Is that a plane flying overhead? The red flashing light?
Yeah, flashing
Okay.
lights like that are planes.
It's high up, especially.
But that lightning's beautiful behind it too.
Those guys are like, it's not lightning. I'm like, well, what would it be then?
Yeah. It's
So what is in this valley here? Is there anything in this valley?
It's a river.
I mean, it's like, it's like there's people up there
That's
messing with
literally
lights.
what it looks like.
But look at that one. That one's up in the air. That was way above the ridge right there.
There was one earlier that was very bright and very high.
Okay. The top of the mountain is lighting up
Yep.
in a wide
Have you seen that,
pattern.
Luca?
On the left side.
Yeah. I've seen that.
Like it's lighting up in a very dispersed, diffused, lighter, wider pattern. It's not a concentrated light.
Yep.
You've got a green one kind of blinking in the center there.
I'm scanning with the thermal and I don't see anything.
Right.
Well, guys, this has been crazy so far.
Yeah.
And you can see the city lights in the distance, and these things are just consistent. They're not as bright as they were when we first got here, not even close. Seen them, Joe?
Nothing on thermal.
Yeah, I tried the thermal
Yeah.
and nothing.
Nothing at all.
What
so.
thermal are you on, Joe?
Huh?
What thermal are you on?
I got the Pulsar Axion XQ38, and
Nothing, huh?
I got nothing on them at all.
I mean, looking at this, what the claim is that's somehow a reflection from the city or whatever?
No, they're claiming
Yeah.
that it's reflection from activity that's supposed to go on down here, and there's
In the
nothing
valley.
going on down here.
And
yeah.
there's lights down in the valley,
Yeah.
too. Got
Well, you can
Holler.
also see the city lights over here.
Yeah.
And I mean, light travels in a linear fashion. You know what I'm saying? So, we're seeing stuff that's on right on this side of the ridgeline over there. So, right on side. So I don't know. I have no explanation for it. It's.
There's a large pool of light on top of one of these mountains. It's getting larger.
I'm seeing one with the naked eye.
Yes.
Right now. Two with the naked eye
it's
now.
not nearly as bright as it was earlier, but I'm seeing the one in the valley from up here. We stayed at Wiseman's View for quite a while, observing the lights. So we moved spots to an area that's actually considered to be a actual viewpoint on Brown Mountain, just to kind of compare. This is a different area,
Find anything here because you just.
and we're seeing what looks more like
so
actual just radio towers and human objects, right? That's kinda
Yeah,
what we're
there's
seeing.
so much light pollution around here. It's just.
It's hard to really tell.
It really
it's very
is.
different than what we were seeing.
Yeah, and they look different.
The closest thing we have is right here, the visible light that you see over here. But without being able to
Know what's beyond?
know what's beyond that,
Yeah.
I mean, where we were just we saw them coming out of the top of the mountain.
Yeah, and
you know what I'm saying?
there were trees. They were in front of the trees. They
Yeah,
were
it's-
in the mountain.
There's no telling what I'm looking at right now.
Yeah.
But this does kind of look like what we saw before, though. Over here, these just look like radio towers, man.
Yeah, there's 3 of them. Yeah, they look pretty
Yeah.
uniform.
But now that wouldn't explain the historical accounts of them, because obviously that's a recent invention within the past several decades. But
Yeah. It's just a night and day difference between
For sure.
stationary
For sure.
objects, radio towers, houses.
Yeah.
They're consistent. They're not spotlighting. They're not flashing the hillside.
they're not moving, they're not lifting into the air. And people had gone, oh, you saw somebody letting off Chinese lanterns. And I'm going, it was like windy as all get out when we were up there.
Yeah, there's
And
no way.
we were freezing. I mean, we were literally, we were numb by the time we left out of there, and we were bundled up. The wind was just cutting. And I'm going, if you release a Chinese lantern into that sort of wind, it's just going to, it's not going to float gently away at that point, It's not going to change direction. It's not going to stop and hover.
Well, it's wild. You guys have been out here now twice.
Yeah.
and you've seen it on both occasions. Obviously, we just saw whatever we saw.
Yeah.
And you compare the differences between what you saw to now. It just kind of leaves you scratching your head as to what it is we're dealing with here. I mean, I don't know. I've seen what I would consider a UFO by definition of the word. There was an object in the sky with things like bright lights flying inside and out of it. And this was totally different. This was like just things in the trees, above the trees, moving around, and no rhyme or reason. I don't know.
And what's weird is what we saw tonight. I could see why people could, because what we saw last time, I'm looking at it going, I don't see supernatural here.
Right.
I see this is an unidentified flying object. Doesn't necessarily have to be a craft, but this is an unidentified flying object. Tonight, with it being in the trees and then lifting out of the mountains and all that, those were what I would consider spook lights, ghost lights almost. The way that they drifted, they kind of light up part of the woods and then disappear.
If it's hypothetically somebody moving around up there with really bright lights, why is it that we're seeing them mostly in one area, and then all of a sudden there's two way high up on this ridge that it's difficult to climb from the bottom of that to the top of that in the dark without a light, and then they suddenly just turn it on and then just stop doing it.
Yeah, so
is this like is this a constant coordinated effort to hoax everybody all the time, every night?
And you, Jess, you brought up earlier the point about people that have been living here, come out here, and they don't ever see anything.
Yeah. Well,
you guys have been out here twice and seen something. Yeah. This is my first time ever here.
And you saw something.
We see something the moment we get there.
But we saw it with our naked eye.
And it's not wishful thinking, because we have all these devices that capture
the devices help us see more.
Yeah.
But we saw stuff with the naked eye. I mean, we saw on the mountain that was facing us. It wasn't houses. It wasn't. There was nothing there.
Right. The next day, we headed back up to Wiseman's View to see the location during the day. Based off of what we observed the night prior, we decided to devise an experiment to either debunk or support what we witnessed. For this experiment, Joe and Jessi would head over to Table Rock in order to hike it at night, while I would stay at Wiseman's View.
Alright, so we're in the truck. We've got a pretty severe storm right over top of us here. You can see it. We got the radar going, the satellite radar going. We're going to try to wait out some of this. I'm actually using the lightning detector for its intended purpose instead of the miraculous portal device. We're using it to detect where this storm is, to see how close it is and how close these lightning strikes are to us. Because Joe and I are about to climb to the highest point in the surrounding area to do this light experiment. So we're directly across from Wiseman's View. We're over at Table Rock, where we have seen these lights emerge, where we've seen these lights fly over Table Rock. Last year in February, we captured them flying over Table Rock. We captured them coming. Whoa, that was a big one. We captured them coming from around this area here, this mountain range here. So we're going to try to be up here, and if they see these lights that we have no explanation for, we can either be vectored in or we'll be up here when it happens. But we're also running a light experiment. Joe and I have several types of lights. We're going to go up to Table Rock. We're going to climb Table Rock in the middle of the night. Hopefully not during a rainstorm and a lightning storm, but we're going to do what we have to do. We're going to climb up Table Rock, and we're going to have IR flashlights. We're going to have red flashlights. We're going to have a camping lantern with several different settings that we're going to put off and see if we can wave that around and see if they can catch that. We've got IR beacons. Is that it? Is that everything?
Ooh.
Laser. We've got a laser. Yeah. We're going to shoot that. And across Linville Gorge, Alex is going to have our Psionics Pro set up on a tripod, and he's going to be monitoring the whole mountain where we are. We've got walkie-talkies, so we're going to be in touch with them, and we're just going to run this experiment, and we're going to see in real time what each type of light looks like on the Psionics Pro from Wiseman's View, from the vantage point that we had last night and a year ago when we saw these mysterious lights. This is an experiment that no one else has ever done before. And I don't know if anybody's stupid enough to do it, because look at this. Jesus.
But here's the deal. The best time to see the lights are after a rainstorm.
Yeah.
So we are in a rainstorm right now.
Yes,
so,
we are.
All right.
We certainly are. So we're going to try to run this experiment and see what we get and see what happens. Sun's setting that way towards Wiseman's View. This is wild, huh?
This is very wild. We're in contact with Aleks and Luca. They're going to go over to Wiseman's View and see if they can detect any of the light sources that we are going to try to emit. And man, we are losing light fast.
All right, we are back here at the Wiseman's View outlook. We're looking now. Joe and Jessi are on the other side on the mountain over there. They're climbing up. We can't see their lights. I don't know where they're at, but the experiment is about to begin. So we're about to find out whether or not it's just hikers and what's going on. So pretty exciting stuff. Okay. All right, we are pretty much in the same position we were last night. We are just getting the cameras up and running. Same exact spots. That's the whole point, is we want to try to make sure to replicate conditions and positions and all that kind of stuff. We're just waiting. They said that they're almost up at the summit, so we're waiting to see, because we can see like a light up there, something moving, but it's not nearly as bright as what we were seeing yesterday, even to the naked eye. That doesn't mean it's not a hiker, but where I saw them, oh, that looks like daytime. Where I saw them, or if that's them, that's not where we saw the lights yesterday.
This is it. This is where we're going.
All right, let's get on up here.
This is where we're doing it.
This is where we're at.
I'm gonna lay my stick down.
All right.
We'll turn the walkie on. All right. We've made it to the summit.
We can see you guys. Yeah, I can see you walking through on that side, and I can see the light nice and bright.
All right, hold on. So tell them right now, just to confirm it's us.
Just to confirm it's us, Joe's gonna turn his headlamp off and on.
My light's on right now. Can you see me right now?
I can see your light, over.
Roger that. Okay, we know exactly where you guys are.
Give us about 5 minutes to get set up, over.
Take as much time as you guys need. All right, they're in position. I don't know if you can see it, but they're up at the top of the ridge. I mean, it looks kind of similar to what we were seeing last night, right? Like, what do you think?
It looks pretty similar.
It looks pretty similar, yeah. But at the same time, I mean, we'll see as the experiment goes on what it's going to look like, and you know, if there are more people or whatever up there last night. But see another one on the right over there. You see that?
Yeah.
That one's kind of flickering.
I'm not picking that one.
Our transmission wasn't going out. Looks like. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you loud and clear.
All right. Just to give me a point of reference, could you flash your light 3 times slowly?
All right, gonna flash in 3, 2, 1.
Did you see that?
Yeah, I've got you. I'm getting ready to extinguish my headlamp, and we're going to try the camping lantern.
Roger that. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
All right, that's the lantern.
Really?
Yep. I wonder if this guy can see. This guy can't really see them now. Oh, a little bit.
Yeah, now they're shining.
Oh yeah, now they're shining it. Yeah. I mean, the lightning is just crazy though.
Does it look anything like what we saw last night?
What do you think, Luca?
Yes.
Yes, it does. I mean, on the psionics, it almost looks even brighter, which is kind of surprising. But you guys are the only thing on the hill right now. Everything else is completely dead. I don't see any glowing areas or anything with the Psionics Pro. So I don't know. It looks similar also on my A7.
Gotcha. 10-4. Going to high lumen flashlight. Over.
Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Whoa, that's
Oh,
super
that's-
bright. That is super bright. Yeah, very, very clear. It's crazy on the psionics. I can see the beam because it's still like the fog and the low clouds. I can see the beam. Do that one more time if you don't mind. Oh, look at that! Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. It's almost like spotlight mode.
Oh yeah.
He's pointing it straight up so you can see if there's any kind of orb effect.
Roger that. I'm checking the psionics now. I can't see the beam vertically, but I can just see just you guys on the psionics. That's it. Just the orb, the dot that you guys are at.
Question for you guys. Do we look anything like what you guys saw last night? I'm going to turn my light on.
Nothing. It just looks like a flashlight. That looks like a flashlight. It's a very white beam.
It just looks like a flashlight. It's a very white beam, and you can see by the way you're moving it.
Okay, interesting. Alright, cool. Cool, carry on.
Moving to our next experiment.
Roger that.
Tell him red flashlight.
You ready?
Yep, get set.
Wait.
1 second. Alright.
Red flashlight.
Oh yeah, yeah, we can see that very well. Yep. It looks insanely red on the psionics. Like it's actually crazy how red it looks.
We're going to point it upwards to see if we get that orb effect again.
It kind of turned blue on the one psionics, but weird. So maybe that's what we were seeing. I don't know. Wow, that's crazy.
Alright, the next one's going to be infrared flashlight.
Sounds good to me.
It's on.
I can see it with the psionics, but we cannot see it with the naked eye. Can you see it with the handycam? Because the handycam has a... No, it's just
No.
won't focus. It's too far for the handycam. But yeah, psionics, both of them can see it.
All right, we're going to move on to the next one. Give us a second. All right, next up is the infrared strobes. It's going to be invisible to the naked eye, but you should be able to see it on the psionics.
Alright, roger that. Whenever you're ready.
They're up.
They're up.
Yeah, I can see it with both the psionicses, and I don't know about the handycam, but he can't really focus that far. So yeah, psionicses are both picking it up.
Hold for the next.
Okay.
We're going to need 3 flashes from your flashlight because we're going to deploy the laser next. We want to make sure that we don't shoot it directly at you, but in the right direction.
Roger that. I will get that flashlight and do some flashing. Alright, here we go.
Alright. Tell him the green laser is going to shoot down at an angle into the gorge.
Green laser going at an angle into the gorge.
I can't see anything. I can just see the dot of you guys on the psionics, and that's about it.
Alright, well, that was it on the green laser. That's surprising.
Yeah, just nothing visible. Just that I can see your guys' light now, and that's it. I mean, I was checking both the psionicses, and I just had the let's see, the Sony I had on a long exposure. Let me see if that maybe got the laser. Oh yeah, I got the laser on the Sony for sure.
Is there anything else you want us to repeat? Because we're not going to climb back up here.
Luca? No, I think you guys are good. I mean, you guys did a great job. I think the next phase of the experiment will just be when you get to the parking lot, just, you know, turning your headlights on, driving it in a loop, and I'll see if we can see it with the psionics.
I'm going to keep the radio on. If you guys see any lights other than maybe our headlamps and us moving down the mountain, let us know.
Yeah, I see one.
Absolutely. We see one right now over to the right where we saw them yesterday, but it just flashed briefly. But we will definitely keep you posted. We got the radios on. We're watching. We're monitoring the whole place. Please just get down safe and let us know as soon as you get to the parking lot. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but maybe we did just debunk what we saw last night. It seems pretty reasonable. Maybe that's what a lot of what people see here is. And that was the whole point of the experiment, to see if it didn't match up at all, we could say, okay, maybe it's not just hikers' flashlights. We know last night was a Saturday night. There's probably a lot more people over there. There was just a big rainstorm, so Jessi and Joe are probably some of the few people over there. We haven't seen nearly as many lights. It'll be interesting just to see the car experiment, but that still doesn't explain what they filmed last time. These things were in the air and flying over each other. So I don't know what to believe. I don't know what's going on and what to really believe, but maybe we debunked a little bit of what we saw last night, but who knows? The mystery of Brown Mountain is probably not ever going to go away. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts right now in the moment, and we'll see how it continues from there. Did we manage to debunk some of what we saw the night before? In my view, we did. As much of what we witnessed were likely hikers and campers with lights in the trees. We did not notice anything more unusual than what appeared to be on the ground level or near the top of the ridge. What we saw looked nothing like what Jessi and Joe filmed last year. Our experiment looked nothing like what they filmed either. That remains a bizarre piece of this puzzle. Did we solve the mystery of the Brown Mountain lights? Definitely not.
It seems to me pretty evident that there is some kind of phenomenon going on, and even some skeptics have over time begun to say, now we are starting to see some evidence of something. But again, it's distinguishing what that phenomenon is from all the other things. And somewhere in the midst of this complex dynamic of hoaxes, you know, fakery, belief, actual phenomena, prosaic things, stories, tall tales that leak in everything from UFOs to, you know, supernatural phenomena and, you know, myths and traditions. Somewhere in the midst of all that, there is, to me, a genuine phenomenon that science really, I think, could maybe benefit from studying.
I don't see myself walking away from this case at all. This really just ignites my interest even further in the case, and you know, developing new theories on it, developing new experiments and tests. And that's the thing, is we have to keep testing these ideas. Can we recreate what we have filmed? And if we can't, that just adds to the more and more layers of evidence that this is a real phenomenon.
We wanted to run some sensor technology, which we didn't get to do this time because of external factors. So I definitely want to do that. I want to come up again, possibly when the weather's colder and there's fewer people out here. Again, it's more difficult to do it, but I think it just cuts down on that human contamination factor that you have to normally deal with. So that's my thing, is that usually, I mean, the book's not closed on it for me at this point. I mean, it's definitely something that takes some more investigating. I think what we've had previously is people just immediately debunk it, and I can see why. You know, you get up here and, you know, people that come up here and look, they just go, oh, there's a radio tower over there, there's a plane, this is just all BS. There's no reason to look into it further. Or people just accept it wholeheartedly that it's weird, and then they just kind of close the door on it. I want to look into it some more and see what we can figure out, man. See if there's any other sort of data out there, is there any sort of patterns that we can pick up for it. So the door's not closed on it. We're definitely going to be back and look into it once again and see what else we can learn from it. The experiment we did last night was really valuable. Maybe there's some other stuff that we can come up with between now and then to try to do up here to see if we can possibly replicate any of those lights at that point.